Throughout every stage of producing each media product, it was vital to collect feedback from my target audience. I discovered the benefits of receiving audience feedback during the pre-production process, as it is a very important aspect in the development of my media products. I then published this on my blog, so I could constantly refer back to these pointers. Audience research allows the potential viewer's opinions on the form and style to be heard. It allows the producer to tailor the film in order to appeal to the identified target audience, as the success of the film depends entirely on whether or not it is engaging to the audience. The audience research therefore gives an idea about the target audience you want to aim the film at, regarding demographics, socio-economics, and psychographics. This also means that it is easier to find where and how to advertise the film. To gain as much as I could from my audience research, I constructed an audience profile that defined my primary and secondary target audience in detail. My media product had a primary target audience demographic of mainly females from the age of 14 to 20, as they can relate to the main characters who are also females in this age range. This means that the specified audience would mainly consist of students from the socio-economic, being either unemployed or casual workers. When applying psychographics within the 4Cs marketing model, they would be considered explorers, as they seek discovery through informative psychological projects. I continue to define this as a niche audience, as the Gothic witch cult theme isn't generally something that is tackled in mainstream film, which is often typical and under-researched. By outlining these areas of my target audience, I was aided in defining the uses and gratifications of my media products. Throughout conducting my audience research and receiving a wide range of feedback, I used a variety of different surveys. Through the use of triangulation with my mixed method approach, I was able to validate my findings so that I could develop my ideas thoroughly through fully understanding the audience's preferences and opinions. To start off my research, I devised a questionnaire that consisted of open and closed questions relevant to the decisions I was in the process of making. They incorporated the themes I would focus on and defined short films through narrative, style, and perspective. This allowed my target audience to be creative and to develop the ideas I had previously formed. I gave the survey out to 20 participants, asking mainly females, as this was my primary target audience. The format of my questionnaire allowed individual responses free from interviewer effect and others' opinions. I was able to produce quantitative and qualitative data on the main areas of my product, enabling me to identify the most important and necessary factors that my audience wanted out of the product. This piece of research was a main contributor to the development of my narrative, as one of the participants provided me with the idea that drew my product together, in describing how the outsider would come into contact with the witches in the first place, and how it would be portrayed to the audience that this person wants to expose the coven. Following this, I devised a focus group that consisted of typical members from my specified audience, allowing an insight into their preferences and opinions. By creating an environment and atmosphere in which the participants feel relaxed, they can freely discuss ideas with meaning and answer the questions thoughtfully. By using focus groups consistently through the production of my project, I was able to understand the target audience's ideas on a deeper level. The questions I introduced promoted and produced in-depth qualitative discussion. Once the conversation began to flow, I used probing questions to encourage the participants to develop and expand their answers. This is a major benefit of focus groups, as I was able to gain increasingly relevant discussions with my audience. I made sure these weren't leading questions, making my results more valid. These responses had implications on how I applied the findings to the improvement of my product. I then conducted another focus group on the first edit to show the development of my project and how the audience are brought to understand the main themes, character representations, and narrative. I also filmed the focus groups so that I could constantly refer to them along with my notes throughout production and post-production. Even once I had finished planning my short film, it was still helpful and necessary to gain consistent feedback throughout the development of my product to enhance my initial concepts. Character representations was a subject that I wanted to largely develop on in my products, and through my audience feedback, I found that the portrayal of the contrasting characters appealed largely to the participants. I then applied this to my product, and was able to provide the audience with the typical friendship group and peer pressure that can take different forms, providing uses and gratifications for my specified audience in terms of social interactions and emotional investment in the characters. The dark nature of my short allowed me to focus on real characters and provide the audience appeal that I was aiming for. I was able to reinforce this in my ancillary tasks that supported my main product. I conducted a survey on my audience's preferences in regards to my 3 rough poster designs, which encompassed different aspects of my short, providing a range of original ideas. The majority preferred Design 3 because of the relationship to characters and use of subtle iconography. The participants also liked the landscape framing of the poster, as it was a variation from the traditional posters they had already seen, and provided a more interesting and informative outlook on what the audience could expect from this short. I began producing the film poster and found it wasn't very effective in portraying what I wanted to about the short, therefore not fulfilling the uses and gratifications that I wanted to create for my audience. Consequently, I decided to restart the process, as I had already collated a range of images that I could work on. Once I had conducted a few experiments, I found some techniques that I definitely wanted to utilize, such as the opacity strength of the images. I decided to conduct some unstructured interviews with various participants, gaining their understanding of the experiments that I had created. I specified particular participants from my target audience, creating a representative sample of the different age groups within my audience profile. I found that they preferred a portrait layout due to the perspective on the characters in relation to the vast forest background. They also provided me with suggestions on tools I could use to merge the images together. Completing this survey also aided me in creating my tagline, "Let the darkness consume me," which was formed during an unstructured interview with one of the participants. These surveys and feedback enabled me to make improvements on my poster based on direct audience research. I also conducted audience feedback on the final draft of my film review. This post-production feedback produced an unbiased direct response from my audience members, rather than the teachers and peers who had already seen the development of my work. I learned that this is an important stage in finalising the product, as your findings will show whether or not it has conformed to the right conventional areas that are needed to target the audience and establish the product. The practical advice that I received from my audience feedback was an accurate reflection of the detail I went into throughout the audience research process. Audience feedback was vital in formulating my ideas in the pre-production planning work and determining the most crucial aspects of my media products that I needed to develop on in the production and post-production processes, enabling me to accurately assess how well my short film and ancillary tasks targeted my audience.